There's a version of this story I've told at dinner tables, at bars, at the kind of late-night kitchen conversations that start because nobody wants to be the first to go to bed. I've told it funny. I've told it sad. I've told it once, very badly, to a therapist who wrote something on her notepad and then looked at me with that particular expression, the one that means we'll come back to this. I never went back, but I'm going to try to tell it right this time. The whole thing, even the parts that don't make me look good. Especially those. It started in Kew Gardens. Not Buckingham Palace, not the Tower, not any of the places tourists expect something to happen. Kew. The Royal Botanic Gardens, pressed into the western bend of the Thames, where the air smells like wet soil and old greenhouse glass and something flowering that you can never quite identify. I'd been living in London for 7 months by then, a transplant technically, though transplant makes it sound more deliberate than it was. I hadn't chosen London so much as I'd stopped being able to stay anywhere else. This was February, which in London means grey, yes, but a particular grey, not the flat grey of American winters, but something layered, almost architectural. The sky that morning looked like wet concrete that had been poured in stages, cold that didn't bite so much as lean on you. The kind of cold that makes you feel the edges of your body, where you stop and the air begins. I went to Kew because a colleague had mentioned it, not warmly. More like there's not much open on a Tuesday morning in February, but Kew doesn't close. I'd written that down, which tells you something about where I was. I bought a single ticket. I remember that the woman at the booth had very short silver hair and reading glasses on a beaded chain. And she said, "Lovely day for it." And I thought, she's being ironic, but she wasn't. She looked genuinely pleased. I didn't know what to do with that, so I took my ticket and walked. The gardens in February are not what the brochures show. There are no tulip meadows, no riots of color. What there is in February is structure, the bones of things, trees stripped to their architecture, the geometry of branches against gray sky, the way a path curves and then straightens with what feels like intention. If you look at Kew in summer, you see the decoration. In February, you see what holds it up. I walked for maybe 20 minutes before I saw him. He was near the rose garden, which in February is just beds of thorned canes cut back to knuckle height, the ground mulched dark around their bases. Not much to look at, but he was crouched at the edge of one of the beds. Not working exactly, just attending. That's the word. He was attending to something. He had on a dark green wax jacket with a Kew Gardens logo on the chest pocket and mud on his boots that had dried and then gotten wet again, and gloves that he'd pushed back so the fingers were bare. He was maybe 60, maybe more. The kind of face that's been outside so long, it stopped pretending to be anything other than what it is, creased at the corners, ruddy across the nose, eyes the color of the sky that morning. Good eyes, actually still ones, and he was talking. I nearly kept walking. It's London. People talk to themselves, people talk to their phones, their dogs, the pigeons, the middle distance. But he wasn't talking to himself. Exactly, he was talking to the rose canes, not muttering, not distracted, talking with the specific cadence of someone engaged in a real exchange, though he was doing both sides of it, a slow sentence, a pause, another slow sentence. He'd reach out occasionally with one bare finger and touch a cane at its joint, the way you'd check for fever on someone's forehead. I stood there longer than was polite. He didn't notice me, or didn't care. I know what this looks like from the outside. Eccentric old gardener talks to roses in February, charming, a little kooky. The kind of thing that becomes an anecdote at the dinner table. I saw the most wonderful old man at Kew, and then you move on to the next thing. But I'd been standing at the edge of my own life for 7 months by then, and something about watching him made my chest do a thing I hadn't expected. I couldn't name it at first. I stood there in the February cold with my hands in my pockets, and I watched this man have a quiet, earnest, wholly private conversation with a row of dormant rose canes, and something in me ached. Not in a poetic way. Physically, the specific ache of recognizing something you want without understanding why you want it. I started walking again before I could figure out what it was. I grew up in a house where what you said was always being measured. My father was an economist, not a famous one, but serious in the way that serious men are serious, which is to say comprehensively. He measured his words the way other people measure ingredients. Precise quantities, the right word, the necessary word, and then silence. There was no premium on talking for the pleasure of it. No such thing as saying something just to hear your own voice. My mother was different, but differently careful. She'd learned to edit herself in the same house, same weather. By the time I came along, they'd both gotten very good at saying exactly as much as the situation required and not one syllable more. I did not inherit this as a trait. I inherited it as an anxiety. The thing about growing up in a household where words are weighed, where you feel in some low-grade way that the wrong word or an unnecessary word constitutes a small failure of character, is that you don't stop wanting to talk. You just start monitoring. Every sentence before you say it. Every opinion before you offer it. Is this necessary? Is this precise? Is this earning its place? It's exhausting, is what it is. It's also, I would learn much later, a spectacularly efficient way to make yourself into someone nobody really knows, including you. I came back the next morning, February, same gray. I bought a ticket from the same woman. She said lovely day for it again, and I decided she said this every day regardless, as a matter of principle. And I respected it, and I walked straight to the rose garden. He was there. Different section of the bed, same crouching posture, same bare-fingered gloves, same quiet conversation with the pruned back canes. I sat on a bench about 20 feet away and watched him for 40 minutes. I told myself I was just resting. I told myself a lot of things that February. The third day he saw me. He stood up from the crouch with the careful slowness of a man whose knees have opinions about cold mornings, turned and looked at me with the expression of someone who has noticed the same car parked outside their house 3 days running. Not suspicious, just noting I should have looked away. I did not look away. He walked over. Not hurriedly, the way men his age walk, like they've made peace with the fact that arriving is not the point. He sat on the bench, not next to me, left a seat space between us, looked out at the rose beds. "You're back," he said. "Yes." He nodded, like this was information of moderate interest. We sat there a moment. A bird, some brown thing I couldn't name, moved through the empty branches of a nearby tree with an efficiency I envied. "What are you telling them?" I asked. He didn't seem surprised by the question. "Depends on the day," he said. "Today I was mostly apologizing for what? Winter." He pulled his gloves back up over his fingers. "Can't be helped." Still seems worth acknowledging. I looked at the rose canes. "Do they?" I stopped. "No," he said. "They don't respond. Not that way, a beat. But they don't contradict me either," which as he paused, seemed to find the word somewhere. Restful. His name was Bernard. Bernard Okafor. He'd been at Kew for 22 years, specializing in the rose collections. Before that, a decade at a garden in Abuja where he'd grown up. Before he'd followed his wife to England and then, 11 years later, stayed after she left to follow someone else back. He told me this over 3 weeks of benches and February mornings. Not in sequence, not in any particular order. The way people tell the truth, in pieces, surrounded by other things. I told him almost nothing. Not because I was hiding, just the habit, the measurement. Every time I assembled a sentence about myself, some internal auditor with my father's posture looked it over and found it wanting. Too much, not necessary. What is this earning? Bernard didn't seem to notice or care. He talked with the same comfortable ease he used with the roses. Unhurried, unmonitored. He'd say a thing, a memory, an observation, a small opinion about soil pH, and then go quiet, and the quiet had no weight in it. That was the thing. The quiet had no weight. In every silence I'd lived in, silence had weight. It was the space where you were being assessed, where the wrong word was being tallied. Even now, 7 months into living alone, in a flat in Chiswick, the quiet of my own rooms felt like something I had to justify my presence in. Watching Bernard sit with his own silence was like watching someone breathe underwater. I didn't understand how he did it. The 4th week I arrived, and he wasn't at the rose garden. I found him eventually in one of the glass houses, the temperate house, the big Victorian one with the iron ribs and the misting system that makes the air taste warm and green. He was tending something in a back corner that I couldn't identify. A plant with dark, waxy leaves and something small and white starting at the base of its stems. I stood in the doorway a moment. He was talking again. Tone different in here. Lower, more intimate. Like you drop your voice in a library or at a hospital. I don't know why, but I wanted very badly to hear what he was saying. I wanted it the way you want things you're not supposed to want, with the specific, uncomfortable clarity of a desire that arrives before you have time to edit it. I walked away instead, sat on a bench outside in the February cold and looked at the sky. It took me another 10 minutes to identify the feeling. Envy. I was envious. Not of Bernard's life, not his 22 years at Kew, not his roses, not his solitary flat somewhere in Richmond, not the ex-wife in Abuja with her someone else. I was envious of this, the ability to say things without consequence, to speak into a silence that would not judge, not measure, not record, to offer words, apologies, observations, small daily confessions into a space that simply received them. He talked to plants, and something in me that had been sitting in a very small, very careful box for 36 years looked at that and thought, I want that. Whatever that is, I want it. The thing about envy is that it tells you something, not about the person you envy, about yourself, about the gap between what you have and what you understand yourself to need. Had always needed, I think, to speak without monitoring, to say things into a space where the value of saying them wasn't contingent on their necessity or precision or the impression they made. Just, here is a thing I'm thinking, here is a thing I feel. I'd never had that, not with my father who measured, not with my ex-wife Caroline, 7 years, the last 2 of which we'd both gotten very good at saying exactly as much as the situation required, not with friends, not with the therapist I'd quit, not with any silence I'd ever sat in. I'd never once in my life spoken without consequence. I didn't know what that even felt like. Bernard did it every morning in a public garden, apologizing to roses for things he couldn't control. On a Tuesday in mid-March, the sky had started doing something tentative that wasn't quite light, but wasn't the old grey either. I came to Kew and found Bernard at the rose garden, and instead of sitting on the bench, I walked over and crouched next to him. He looked at me, looked back at the canes. There's a new bud coming on this one, he said, not as an introduction, just as a statement of fact that I was welcome to join. I looked, there was, yes, a tight dark point at the joint of a cane, just barely differentiating itself from the rest. Can I started, stopped. The auditor raised his pen. I ignored him. Can I try it? I said. Bernard was quiet for a moment. Nobody's stopping you, he said. I looked at the rose cane for a long time. I don't know what I expected. Instruction, maybe, a template. Here is the format for speaking to plants. Something to get right. Bernard waited. He was good at that. What came out eventually was this. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're called. Then nothing. The cold, the smell of wet mulch, a bird, somewhere. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner, I said. I didn't know this was here. I stopped again. Bernard had gone still beside me, not looking at me. I think I forgot, I said, that things kept growing while I wasn't paying attention. And then I stopped because my throat had done something I hadn't given it permission to do, and I was crouched in Kew Gardens in March talking to a rose cane and suddenly, embarrassingly, completely unable to continue. Bernard stood up, brushed the dirt from his knee. Good start, he said, and walked to the next section of bed. The problem with opening something is that you then have to deal with what comes out. I didn't go back to Kew for 11 days. I told myself I was busy. There was a project review, a call to the States, a dinner I'd committed to months earlier with people I barely knew. But that's not why I didn't go. I didn't go because I'd crouched in a public garden in front of a dormant rose cane and said something true out loud without scaffolding around it, and the experience had shaken me in a way I wasn't prepared for, not in a dramatic way, not tears, not revelations, nothing cinematic, just the specific vertigo of having done something you've never done before and realizing the ground is still there, which is, somehow, more disorienting than if it hadn't been. I went to work. I answered emails. I went to the grocery store on a Thursday and stood in the vegetable aisle for 4 minutes looking at leeks in my flat alone. In the evenings, and my evenings were long, the particular long of evenings when you have not filled them with noise on purpose, I kept replaying it. the crouching, the mud smell. My own voice saying, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're called." It sounded ridiculous, replayed, and also not. I'd met Caroline at a conference in Edinburgh. She was presenting a paper on environmental law, and I was there as a corporate observer, which is a title that means his company paid for him to sit in a room and listen, and he is the junior enough not to object. I'd sat at the end of her row because the back was full, and at the break she'd said, "You look like you have opinions," and I'd said, "I have a lot of opinions I'm not sure are worth expressing," and she'd laughed in a way that made me think, oh, we were good at the same things, which was the problem. Both careful with language, both private in a way we'd each mistaken for a while for depth, both capable of sitting in a room together and generating a silence that looked from the outside like contentment and felt, by the end, like two people holding their breath in separate rooms of the same building. We never fought. That should have told us something. When she left, she did it in the most reasonable, well-considered way imaginable. She made a list. Not a literal list. Caroline was too graceful for that. But there was a list in the structure of the conversation, an orderliness that told me she'd been preparing this for a while. I recognized the preparation because I'd done it too. I just hadn't known what I was preparing it for. I said all the appropriate things. I asked the right questions. I gave her space in the way someone gives space when they've been trained since childhood to give space, not generously, but automatically, because the alternative is asking for something, and that requires believing your asking has value. She left, I moved to London, and I spent 7 months being very precise about exactly what I said to exactly whom. I went back on a Thursday. Bernard was in the water lily house, the small circular one, the one that stays warm enough year-round that you forget what month it is the moment you step inside. He was working with something near the back, low to the ground, unhurried as always. I didn't try to sneak in. He heard me. "Thought you'd done a runner," he said, without turning around. I almost did. He made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. "They do that, people. Come once, try something, run." He wasn't accusing, just noting. I sat on a low wooden stool near the entrance. There was one just there, like it had been put there for exactly this purpose, and looked at the water lilies. They were extraordinary. The kind of extraordinary that's almost aggressive. Leaves like green platters floating on black water, the whole room humid and slightly unreal. "Why does it help?" I said. Talking to them, Bernard was quiet for a moment. "Because they're there," he said, "but they don't need anything from me." He paused. People, when you talk to people, you're always managing two things: what you're saying and what they're receiving. Even good people, even people you love. He touched a leaf with 2 fingers. Plants just receive. They don't need you to land correctly. They don't need the words to be useful. You can just, he searched, put it out there. I thought about that. "That sounds lonely," I said. He looked at me then over his shoulder. "You think talking to people isn't lonely? The thing about London, the thing they don't tell you, or maybe they do and you don't believe it until you live it, is that it is entirely possible to exist there in a state of almost total human contact and almost total human isolation simultaneously. I had colleagues. I had a neighbor who left notes if I played music too loud. I didn't play music. I had a local cafe where I went enough mornings that the person behind the counter knew what I ordered. I spoke to humans daily. I was, by any metric, a functional member of a social environment. I was also, and I know how this sounds, completely alone in the way that matters. Alone in the sense of no one knew what I was actually thinking. Not because I was hiding anything exactly, just because I'd spent 36 years developing the habit of editing between thought and speech, and the edit was so automatic by now that I didn't always know what I'd removed. Bernard knew, without me having told him any of this, because Bernard was the kind of person who'd spent 22 years paying close attention to things that couldn't fake it. Plants don't pretend. They're not one thing in the morning and another thing in the afternoon depending on who's watching. They just are or aren't. He'd gotten very good at seeing what was, rather than what was presented. "I talked to plants once," I said. As a kid, he waited. My grandmother had a window box on the 2nd floor. Petunias, the purple ones, I'd talk to them when I was staying there in summer. I don't remember what about. How old? 7, 8 maybe. And then I thought about it. And then I got old enough to know it was embarrassing. Bernard turned fully around then and looked at me with an expression I couldn't categorize. Not pity, not recognition, exactly. Something more like, yes, that's where it goes. 7, he said, is when we learn to perform. He looked back at the water lily. That's a long time to be performing. I started coming every day. Not always for long, sometimes just 30 minutes between the train and the office. Sometimes an hour in the afternoon. I had a pass by then, the annual kind, which the same silver-haired woman sold me with a warmth that suggested she approved. I didn't always talk when Bernard was there. Sometimes I'd find a corner of one of the glass houses and just sit the temperate house, mostly. Something about the scale of it, the iron-ribbed nave of it, the way the Victorian engineering held all that breath and heat, made the inside of my head quieter. Once, and then more than once, I talked, not deeply at first, the way you wade into cold water, 1 degree at a time, testing. I said things like, I think I'm not very good at this. Things like, I don't know why I'm here, exactly. And I can't decide if that's honest or if it's something I'm saying, because it sounds more acceptable than the truth. The plants received this without commentary. It was, as Bernard had said, restful. There was an afternoon in late March. The light had changed by then, genuinely changed, the sky doing something that actually looked like spring rather than just a lighter shade of not spring, when I found myself in front of a section of the rose garden where the new growth had started in earnest. Not flowers, not yet, but leaves. The first red-green uncurlings of them, thin and slightly furred, coming off the canes where a month ago there'd been nothing but the hardened dormancy of winter. I crouched, same posture Bernard used. I put my hand near one of the new leaves. Didn't touch it, just near. I don't know what I did. I said, not to the rose, not to Bernard who wasn't there, to no one, to the air, with Caroline. I don't know if I was unkind or just absent. I don't know if there's a meaningful difference between someone who withholds because they're cruel and someone who withholds because they were never taught it was allowed to put things out there. I paused. A couple walked past on the nearby path, not looking at me. I think I loved her. I think I loved her the way you can love something and still fail it, which is maybe the most useless kind of love there is. I sat with that for a while. The rose didn't argue. Bernard found me there maybe 15 minutes later. He came with 2 cups of something in a paper bag, coffee from the little cafe near the main gate, and sat on the bench behind me and said nothing. Just passed a cup over my shoulder. I took it, sat on the ground with my back to the bench. The way a kid would sit. We drank coffee in the late March light. Did you ever talk to your wife? I asked. Like this, just no, he said. I wish I had. What did you talk about? He thought about it. The practical things, the children, the money, later, the plans. We talked about plans constantly. He paused. We were very good at plans. I turned to look at him. He was looking at the roses. We never talked about what the plans were for, he said. That seems like it should have come first. There's a particular grief, and I've come to believe it is grief, technically, even if nobody dies in the story, that comes from recognizing you had something you didn't know how to hold. Not because you were careless, because you'd never been given a lesson on the subject, and you'd mistaken the absence of instruction for a sign that holding wasn't something you needed to do. My father never once said, here is how you put something down in front of another person and let them see it. He was not a bad man. He was a man who'd been given the same absence of instruction by a different set of people in a different country, in a different century. The thing got passed along like a piece of furniture no one can quite get rid of, not because it's good, but because it's familiar, and familiarity is so often mistaken for necessity. I thought about this on my commute home. I thought about it in the grocery store. I thought about it in the evenings in my flat, which had started to feel very slightly less like a room I was waiting in. I called my father that Thursday, not to talk about any of this. I wasn't ready for that. And maybe that conversation belongs to a different season than February and March. But I called him. We talked about the project review. We talked about the weather in both cities, which is the kind of talking that isn't really talking. At the end, I said, it's good to hear your voice. And he said, yes. And then there was a silence.